Good evening to all of you. I hope you can hear me. And this is the first webinar in the series of AWS for Actuaries. What we're going to show you today is what is Amazon Web Services, how we can use it for actuarial work. And there are a lot of very nice services, wonderful services which Amazon offers. I'm going to walk you through one of these services called as EC2, which is basically a compute engine, a server. And today we will launch Ubuntu 18.04 LTS server on it. And we will also install R Studio server. We'll configure that server. We'll open the required ports. And to begin with, let's go to the Amazon Web Services website here. So this is the AWS website, which is aws.amazon.com. And as you can see, we have, like any website, we have a lot of options available here. And this is basically the on-demand, infrastructure service, cloud-based infrastructure service, which is offered by Amazon, the e-commerce giant. So here we have a lot of products, if you see. And over last 10 years, I have been a user of AWS for last 10 years and so. And over last 10 years, they have actually added a lot of services. We have been using these services for quite some time. We have, done a lot of experiments related to actuarial valuation, and we have set up a lot of production loads, instances for our customers and for our own work. And now I decided that it's good to tweak with these services as an actuarial student. You can, as an aspiring actuary, as an actuarial professional, you can try different options available. So as you can see, these are the services which are featured here for AR. We have blockchain, we have AI, we have game tech. So a lot of all futuristic things which you can do with it. And if you have interest, in making things on your own, then of course this is the platform for you. So I have already set up an account, but when you start something on it, you will have to create uh, an account on AWS, of course. And this is meant for commercial work, no doubt. So this is no playground. But luckily, AWS offers, an option called as free tier. So you can use that free tier if you use these on-demand services within certain limit. Then there is no charge at all. Now, having said that, I would like to make a disclaimer that when you open an account, you will have to also give your credit card, because without a credit card, they will not allow you to sign up. You'll also have to give you your phone number, and other details, of course. And as long as you stay within those limits of free tier, there'll be no bill, there'll be no charge. But if you use anything extra, of course, AWS is going to charge you, and money will be debited at the end of the month from your credit card. So be very careful, go through the documentation, and I take no responsibility at all if you end up paying something to AWS. So please be very careful about it. And me or my company, we cannot take any responsibility at all. If AWS charges you, because we are not connected with them. This is a knowledge base and a webinar that we are trying to do for actuarial professionals. And a lot of companies already are using it, including actuarial departments of various life offices or general insurance companies. So we need to explore the options here. And as an actuarial professional, let us see what AWS has to offer for you. So to begin with, we can sign up. And as I said, I have already created an account. So I'll log into it directly, but I'll surely show you how you can create a new account. So here, When you click on management console, you can see an option to create a new AWS account. And here you will have to, I think since I've already signed up, so it's not taking me to that page. I've created a new test account today for these webinars. I can't show you the production account that we have with them because we run a lot of instances on it. So I made a new account with another credit card that I had to show you how these services can be used. So I'll go ahead and log in then. And the sign up process is pretty simple, like any other website. You just give your accounts and a credit card information, and you'll be good to go. Within a few minutes, they will give you access to all the services. There'll be, of course, certain limits in the beginning. So, anyways, at this point, we're not trying to use it for production purposes. And they also have, some terms and conditions related to how you can use their services. Please go through them when you sign up. The good thing is for people who are based in India, there is a local entity of Amazon Web Services here. And when you sign up with AWS, you actually sign up with the local Indian entity. Of course, AWS is a global company and they have got data centers all around the world. And but particularly for Indian, customers, they have a local entity so that you can pay your bills in INR. And otherwise, the preferred currency that they have, the billing, is done in US dollars. Okay, so I go ahead and sign in. So I'm signing in as a root user. This is what you see when you sign into a management console of Amazon Web Services. All right, before we proceed, there is a chat screen right in front of me, which is not over here on the screen that you're able to see, but I can look at that screen while talking to you. So in case you have any query, you can always put it up there. And once I see it, I will be able to answer it. So this AWS management console that you see in front of you, has got some services listed here. And this is the one which we are interested in today, which is EC2. And under this menu, which is services, you can see these are the applications and services that they offer. So for compute, they have got not just EC2, but lot many others. And, once you understand a cloud-based, server architecture and how these services can be used, Lambda is going to be very useful. Because it can do a lot of processing at very low costs. And likewise, the Beanstalk and S3, which is for storage. We all know that as an actuary, as an actuarial professional, you have to store a lot of data and you have to access a lot of data. So S3, then RDS, which is for managing databases. You can run your SQL queries and you can store data in various SQL forms. You can use MySQL or SQL Server. And as I said earlier, today we are going to use a Linux-based instance, but you can also run Windows workloads on AWS as well. So apart from this, we have a lot of other good features for AI, for blockchain, and we will be going to them one by one, of course. And today our focus is, one of the primary service, which is called EC2. And let's begin by clicking here on EC2. So EC2 itself has got a dashboard, as you can see. So once you click here, there are some useful information that we have. On top right corner here, you can see it says Mumbai. And when you click on it, a drop down comes here, which shows the location of the data centers. And you can run your instance. So each server is called an instance here. You can run your instances in any of these servers. We are choosing Mumbai. And so choosing a server is based upon your requirement, of course, the kind of workload that you want to run. Also, latency is very important. So how you want to access the your information, how you want to access your data, and how you want your clients to access those instances. So latency is an important factor, and based on that, you have to choose what is good for you. So on this dashboard, you can see it says zero running instances. There are zero dedicated hosts. There is one key pair, some elastic IPs, snapshots, and all that. So all this information may be too technical for you. And what we are trying to do here is to understand how EC2 can be used for our work. By starting something as simple as RStudio server. So I'm sure you are aware about what an IP is. AWS has got slightly different concepts of IP. So here, IPs are not always bound to your single instances, because these are on-demand infrastructure. So you can release the IPs and attach new IPs, or you can also buy IPs and have a permanent address to your instance. So by instance, we mean a server here. And on the left side, you can see there are a lot of options like instances, templates. So some of this may look quite technical to you, but if you follow this video later on, I'll be giving you a recording, or if you just follow the blog that we write about this, after the webinar today, if you follow that, I'm sure you would be able to replicate all these steps and set up an instance for yourself, and also install RStudio server for your work. And from there on, you can build. You can go to the forums. You can see what others are doing with such instances, and if you get into trouble, you can always search on internet how to resolve certain issues. So let's click on these running instances. And once I go to the running instance, here there is some information about the servers that we already have. So as you can see here, there is an instance ID, and then this instance is already terminated. Let's not talk about it because this is some test server that we launched today. I'm going to create a new instance. So I'll click on launch instance. And once I launch it, I am presented with a lot of options, such as which operating system I want to go for. And AWS calls it AMI. This is Amazon Machine Image, which is basically nothing but choosing an OS for your server. So as I said, today we'll use the Ubuntu flavor of this Linux flavor called Ubuntu. And this is the latest one available, which is 18.04 LTS, as you can see here. So I'll go ahead and click on this select, and then I'm presented with some options, as you can see, like how big is the instance that I'm planning to provision. And so there is type, there is the virtual CPU, the kind of memory I want, and there is a red tag here called as free tier. So make sure that you choose the T2 micro instance for your experiments, for understanding and learning. And because if you choose something else, that is not going to be covered in your free tier, and you will be charged. So choose T2 micro. As long as you use T2 micro, and up to 720 hours of T2 micro instance is available for free, which is actually running a server for the entire month if you look at 720 hours. So I'll go ahead and click on review and launch, and there'll be other options coming in front of you. What kind of security groups will this fall into, and the storage. So I can go ahead and launch this straight away. And this is important. So when you launch an instance, it will ask you to choose a key pair. So this key pair is something, it's like a lock and key. So you need this key in order to access your instance, so that you can install RStudio server on your server, on your instance. So I'll choose a new key pair. Let me name it as Actuary Life, and make sure you download this as well. So you choose, when you do this, you will have no key pair already made or installed. So you make the first one, create a new key pair, and download. This is important, otherwise you'll not be able to access your server from your computer. So remember, this instance or server is something which is connected with internet and kept in some remote location. It could be just a small motherboard in one big server. So in order to access that motherboard and the memory which is attached to it, you would need a key. And this key pair, you can name it anything and store it on your local computer like I did just now. I stored it in my system. Okay. Now, once you're done with this, you click on launch instance. So you'll be presented with some information about, how what is happening, and the instances are now launching. So this part is, I understand, is tricky. You may not have done this before, and there's nothing to do with R here. But unless we have the server ready, we cannot install the software on it. So while this is happening, if we go back to EC2, as you can see here, we have now one running instance. It is already provisioned. So this is that fast. Imagine, I just clicked on it and a server is switched on for me. I just clicked on launch instance, and a server which has got one virtual CPU, 1 gigabit of memory, and maybe 25 gigabits of storage is readily available just on a click of a button. Although it still says now initializing, which is basically status check. But the instant state, if you look at this, what I have selected just now, it says running. Now, when you select your new server or the new instance, you'll be presented with some information down here. There are two things which are important for us. One is public IP, which is here, which starts with 13.233.161. So this is the address of your new instance. And there is also public DNS. We need this to access the server so that we can install the RStudio software. All right. So I'm sorry. Remember, we also have downloaded the key pair. So we'll come back to this and see how to access this machine, the instance from our local computer. In the meantime, let's go to the RStudio website. So I'm sure you have been here. You have visited the RStudio website before to download your favorite program. And some of us like to work with the R console and not with RStudio. But of course, RStudio is quite useful program if you want to make a career in data analytics, and one of the best IDE available, and also free of cost. They have commercial version which is beautiful, and a lot of people use it. Companies use that. And so I'll go to the RStudio, and you can see there are two options: the desktop version and the server version. So we are interested today in the server, and let me explain you why RStudio server could be useful for your work. So once it is installed on on a host or on this instance of AWS EC2, you can then access it from anywhere. All you need to do is the the right access arrangement, and the username, passwords, of course, and once you have that, you can access it from any machine which is connected to internet. So we are going to configure that, and as you can see, there is an open source edition available, and it can be accessed via web browser, and you can scale compute and RAM centrally. So some options which are available, and to get support, you can always go to their community forums, and it is also free. That's the best part of it. So as somebody who is learning and somebody who is trying to become an actuary, or even if you're already working, this is quite useful for you, because your company may not be using R or RStudio server for that matter. So you can surely build your skill set into it, and try to do some commercial work on it. So here, to download the RStudio server, we have some instructions. So I'm going to share these URLs with you as well, where you can find this information, and you will find some Linux commands here to install RStudio server. I'm going to show you how to do this now, and trust me, it's pretty easy. Once you understand this, then it is easy to do, and you will have to, of course, do some error trials. You don't learn this on day one, these things. But if you're ready to do error trial, then of course, you can surely build a skill set which is very useful in current job market. Okay, so remember, we installed an Ubuntu server version which is 18. So on this page, you will find information about Ubuntu 14, 16, 9 plus, which is basically the other OS called Debian, which is the base on which Ubuntu is made. Then we have Ubuntu 18. So these are the instructions that we will be following. And remember, don't copy any other instruction over here, because then you may end up not being able to install the RStudio on your new instance. All right, so let's go back to EC2 now. Remember, we downloaded the key pairs, so it is time to access the server. Now, AWS comes with some security arrangement called as security groups. That means when you are trying to access your server or your instance, you will have to make sure you have rights to do that, and those rights can be controlled through this management console. So I'm going to the details of these server once again, and as you can see, there is something called as security groups here, which I have highlighted just now. It says launch wizard 2, and you can view inbound rules and the outbound rules. So I'm going to click on these security groups here, and this is the one which is applicable to the new instance that we have launched. Click on inbound, click on edit. You see there are list of rules such as SSH. This is the secure access to your server, and it is done on port 22. Now it says custom here. Click on my IP. Now what this will do, you can see it has shown one IP address, which is your IP address, the IP address of your internet connection. So when you try to access your instance, if the request is not coming from this IP, it will be rejected. So it's kind of a security feature, so that only you can access the instance and configure it or install or uninstall anything on it. Then I need to add few more rules. There is one rule which is for port 8787. This is needed for RStudio server, and in order to access your RStudio server, you will have to use this 8787, and again make sure that it is your IP which can access it. So which would mean only requests coming from this IP will be entertained, will be honored by RStudio server. Otherwise, it will not open up. So this is again a security feature for any important work that you are doing. Unless the request comes from this IP, it won't work. Then there is a general rule for TCP, and we can keep it as anywhere because we are doing browser-based work. So any data which is stored on your server may be accessed through TCP, and it is good for you because when you're trying to install packages, when you're trying to exchange information, then of course this TCP would be needed, which is basically port 80. It'll automatically take it. We can just type it here. If you want to make it more stringent, of course, you can always choose my IP, and that will make sure the information exchange only happens from your IP. For now, I'm going to keep it as anywhere because I may have to install some public applications on the same server as well later on. I'm going to save this. Now, once these security rules are saved, the next step is to go and access your instance, and this happens from from an application called as PuTTY, or if you're using a Mac system, you can use your terminal directly. I'm going to show both the options to you. In case you use Windows-based machine, you can use PuTTY, or if you are using Mac, then you can use terminal. I have a Mac machine here, so I'm going to first do this in the terminal application. So I open my terminal, and once the terminal is open, the next step is to locate that file, which is actuarylife.pem. Remember, we have downloaded a key pair. So I go to my downloads folder, then I locate that file, which is actuarylife.pem. Now this, I'm trying to change the mode of actuarylife.pem to make sure that I'm able to access my server through it. So once there are similar steps for Windows based access as well. For now, we are just trying to do this in Mac. Then I go back to my instance and I copy the public DNS. This one, the one which says public DNS IPv4. So I copy this. This is needed to access the instance through my local computer. I type a command SSH. Remember, we have already enabled SSH on port 22 using this IP on which my computer is connected to. So here you will have to make some changes. First change that you'll have to do is type the name of that file which is being downloaded, the name of keep here. In our case, it is actuarylife.pem. Then Ubuntu is the username here to access the server. It's a standard username. Of course, you can change it once you log in for the first time, but this is a standard name. And then I'm pasting that public DNS which I have copied from my instance address. So once you click on it, it'll show you that you are accessing it for first time. You want to save this keep here, so you say yes to that. When you access it from Windows machine, you will see similar screens, similar commands, and similar kind of setup. So once you say yes, now it will log into this server. As you can see, Ubuntu @IP 172.314.5.103. So this is my login prompt. Now, since I'm going to install RStudio server, I need to work as a super user. I'm going to sudo, and different people have different opinion about it. Some say you don't sudo to root. I prefer doing it because I'm not running any commercial work right now here, and there's no production load. So I can, I'm sorry, I have to write sudo su. So these commands are same whether you are working in Mac or Windows. And because now we are, we have logged into the Ubuntu instance that we created on AWS. So here only the Linux command would work, whether you are accessing from Windows machine or Mac. So here I go to my, I've already sudo as root user, which is super user. Then I go to the root folder. Now we need to begin installing our RStudio server. Let's go back to the instructions that I was trying to show you earlier, which is the instruction on the RStudio website. So here you can see there are instructions on the RStudio website about how you can install RBase, and then you can install the RStudio server. And you should not forget the kind of Ubuntu OS that you have installed. So in this case, it is going to be Bionic, which is 18.04. Please copy this Ubuntu Bionic CRAN 35, and we are going to edit a sources file on Ubuntu server, and then we will try to install base R to it. So there are instructions about editing the sources list file over here. We are going to use this. I'll type a command called nano. This is an editor, and I will edit the sources file on my server. So when I try to edit the sources.list file, it opens up the current instructions in the file, and I just add this CRAN 35 source link to this sources list, so that when I update my server next time, it'll automatically take the necessary files or set the path for me to install RStudio server, or RBase first actually. So I save this by using Control O, and then I exit the file. Now we have the necessary instruction to install our RBase. So next step is so everything is written. You see, I'm not doing anything new here. I'm just trying to, make you understand and facilitate what can be done. But all these instructions are written on RStudio website. I'm simply copying it from there and trying to show you how you can use them. So I update my server now using apt-get update, and it'll take some time because you have seen in the sources.list file there were a lot of instructions. So the update command has to go through each one of them, and if they find something new, it'll get added to the library. So you may encounter some errors or some warnings. Just ignore them at the moment, because what we're trying to install is the latest, so there is hardly any chance that it will not work. So now next step is we go and install our R base. This is important for our RStudio server to work. And R is, of course, if R is not installed, then RStudio won't work. So we'll have to install R base first. It'll ask us to download some 609 MB of additional data. Say yes to it. We'll have to type Y and then let it do its work. It'll take maybe few seconds. In the meantime, let's go back and try to explore the other services that we have. So I told you that compute, of course, EC2 is one of the primary service that we have, but at the same time we have a service called as RDS, which is Relational Database Server, and this is pretty useful for anybody who's interested in hosting a large amount of data. So when we talk about RDS, this has got lot of technologies which we can host on RDS, such as we can use MySQL, we can use SQL Server, we also have Aurora, we also have different type of options. So here the best part is you can have all your database tagged together. Maybe you may be running some Windows workload at the same time. You may have some open source MySQL, so you can have all of them together at one place, and also access them through some admin packages. There are a lot of free and open source and commercial applications available to access your data. So what I'm trying to say, MS Excel or any heavy duty software which cost hundreds of thousands, they are not the only option. You can run your production load for few dollars a week, and you can save a lot of money. You can also save time. So once you know how to manage this, even if you keep people to manage your workloads, it still will be cheaper, and at the same time it is secure. There are a lot of options available to make your data secure, to make your work secure. And if that was not the case, the big MNCs won't be hosting their workloads on AWS. And of course, AWS is not the only option. There are other services, other similar services run by Microsoft, run by Google, but AWS, being one of the market leaders, has really become prominent. There are some notable similar services such as DigitalOcean, which is becoming very popular. So if you know how to work around with your Linux servers, then DigitalOcean is quite wonderful, and it is something which you can scale very easily, and it is economical than AWS. So my experience with these services, over the last 10 years, I found DigitalOcean also to be quite good. So it is up to you how you want to use these services to host your data and your production workloads. Of course, we are talking about training here, so there is no production workload that we are planning to run. I'm just saying, if any one of you already working in any insurance company or working on insurtech products or services, you can consider AWS, and this will surely save you time and money. All right, so let's go ahead. Now that our base is already installed, as you can see, the root prompt is back. So next thing that we are going to do is to install our RStudio server. Now this is a little tricky. As I told you earlier, you need to make sure you install the right version. Otherwise, you will end up doing the same thing over and over again. So we know that we have installed Ubuntu 18 today. That would mean that we go for these instructions. So there is a GDB core application which is needed to install the deb packages, especially the RStudio server. So the first command that I'm copying here is basically to install a unpacking program which is called GDB core, and we will use this to unpack our RStudio server in the next step. So I go here and install this apt-get install. Simple command. It'll take few seconds to get installed. It's a small program. So we're back on root prompt. Then this we have to do from wget. So I was ignoring sudo earlier, if you would have noticed, but now this wget, the whole command has to be copied, because this wget is basically to download some files from a link. So this is a deb program meant for Ubuntu, given by just give me one moment. Yeah, given by I hope you can see my screen still. By the way, are you able to see the terminal that I have been typing in? Oh, I see. This terminal is not shared. You may not have been seeing. All right. I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. You'll have to then look for the recording later on. And I'm just going ahead because we are almost towards the end of this. I didn't realize that the terminal screen is not shared. Nobody actually mentioned it also. Anyways, so I'm installing this, and right. Just give me a moment. I think I can install this now. All right, I have shared the entire screen now so that you can see the terminal screen as well. And what I've been doing, I'll just quickly take you through that. What I've been doing is using this terminal screen to type all those Linux commands, and right from the beginning where I have logged into the server. And so the latest one that I have typed here is to download the RStudio server using that wget command, which I have copied from the RStudio website. So now that we have downloaded the RStudio server, the next step is to install it. So I'm using that gdb command earlier, which we have installed, and you can see it asks me to, do you want to install the software package? Say yes to that, and install the RStudio server on your machine. So it will go through certain steps, as you can see, where it will download and then configure the RStudio server, and finally it will give you a message that RStudio server is already installed. So sorry, we have installed the server. Our next step is to make a user on it and give him a writable directory so that the packages for R can be installed. So let's go back to our console, the management console, our EC2 console. And remember, I have shown you the IP address there. So go to your instance. Then, so the one which was terminated is now deleted. The only one which we are using right now, which has got IP address as 13.233.161.116. So I'm copying this IP address and putting it in the browser. So the moment I type it here or paste it here and press enter, it doesn't give me anything, right? Although it is a public IP. So we can access our server by using this IP with correct port. Remember that 8787 was the port that we have opened for RStudio. Once I click on it, So here you go. The RStudio server is installed, and now we have a login prompt on our own EC2 instance that we have installed, and you can use it. Once you log in, you will be able to see your usual RStudio screen, and you'll be able to work on it. Now, as I said, we need to create a user. So I go back to my terminal, and here I add a user. So I use a command called user add and Vikram. So user add Vikram gives me a new user called Vikram on this server, on this Linux server, on this Ubuntu server. But I need to also set a password for it so that I can use it in the login prompt for RStudio server. So there's a command called as passwd, and I type here the username for which I want to set up the password. So it asks me to enter new Unix password. Here I'm giving a password and also retyping it. So it says password updated successfully. Let's go back there and try to log in with these credentials. So as you can see, it has accepted my username and password, but it won't let me use R. Let us see the error that you get. So this is kind of troubleshooting that you may have to go through when you try to use RStudio on your new EC2. It says unable to connect to service. Now there could be many possible reasons for it, but the reason that we are going to resolve now, the issue is that the directory is not writable. So there is a home directory for, there is no home directory for user Vikram, and I need to first create a directory and make it writable so that R can access it to install packages, to install libraries, and so on. So for that purpose, we'll go back to our console once again and use a command called mkdir. For those who have studied DOS or Linux before, I'm sure they must be familiar with these commands. They are very simple commands. So mkdir makes a directory. So there is a home directory which is already made, and I want to create a directory within that called Vikram. So this is the directory that I have created, and then I need one more directory which is for RStudio. So I type mkdir home Vikram RStudio. This is another directory which I have made. Then I have to also make a graphics directory. A graphics directory is needed, which is within RStudio. I make that also. Then there is also requirement to change the ownership, or give rights to Vikram to use these directories. So you'll have to change this Vikram to your own username that you create, of course. And as you can see here, I'm changing ownership to Vikram for these directories also. So these are all Linux commands, and I may also want to do this for the original directory Vikram and recursive. So R here stands for recursive. Everything which is inside Vikram will have the owner would be Vikram himself, and he can make changes to it. Then it's a good practice to the user that you are making for RStudio. It is a good practice to give him supervisory rights also, so that he can install packages in other directories. And for that, there's a command called user mode, and I'm making Vikram as staff or a supervisor, and then this will help Linux to understand that you can he can make changes. This user can make changes. So I think we are set now. Let's go back, and all we need to do is just refresh this page, which is 8787, and here you go. You can see that R is visible in my browser, and this is like any other R installation that you have on your desktop computers. So you can have you can also install your packages and use them. So there could be some issues related to installation of certain packages. You have to make sure that you are able to use the right library paths. So for that purpose, we can use this command here. I'm sure you must have used the actual package if you are an R user at some point of the time. So here I give the library path as well in order to install this. So once I install this package, it still asks me that it is not writable. So I think this is because I have not enabled the port. But of course, even if you do this in some personal library instead, later on you'll have to set up a new R profile so that R can use the commands from that path, or it can use the package from that path. So here, let's go ahead and install it. It will again ask me to whether I can use another library. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead with that also. So once you do that, then it will fetch. So this is also, what I'm trying to do is to install some package which is useful for actuarial work. And so we are pretty much set here, and you can run any command, any kind of data analysis. You can also save your CSV files and call them over here, and you can also use other services along with EC2. So this is what we have done today. We started with installing an instance, EC2 instance. We got the key pair. We installed Ubuntu 18 on it, and then we used our local computer to access that instance. And once we are able to access the instance, we have installed RStudio server to it. And most importantly, this works on 8787 port. So you have to enable this port by going to the security groups here and create an entry in security groups for your inbound rules. So there are multiple steps that you got to follow. You may have to look at the recording of this webinar in order to make this work for yourself, or follow the blog that we write later on. You can always reach out to me through LinkedIn, of course. You can always contact me through WhatsApp chat. I'm always available, and I'm open to any questions. If you want to ask me anything that you have in mind, please go ahead. You can type in the chat box. This is live event, so I'm able to look at your chats and answer them.